Hi, I'm Lawrence Brenner with these amazing commentators and creators, and I'd like to talk about African American characters and their portrayals through different media. As many people may know, that people of a particular generation of comics fandom, such as the 1990s and 2000s, were first introduced with African American characters through the Teen Titans show, Justice League, and Justice League Unlimited. And then, of course, later on from in the 2010s with Young Justice. I would like to talk about how you think the portrayals of the characters have been to showing audiences awesome African-American characters and some of the things that you hope it would inspire in the coming generations.
You might want to start with that. Or how do you feel about it?
I'll throw something out there. When you're talking about you're talking about some of these portrayals of modern comic books, modern African American people of color portrayals, and you have to look at Dwayne McDuffie. Right. The reason why John Stewart as Green Lantern, or many people, younger people know John Stewart as Green Lantern, is because Dwayne McDuffie wrote that character into the Justice League. Right. So if you're going to look at that, then you also have to look at Milestone Media, which he was the founders of. Right. And
where Saturn came from.
So all of that, it comes out of an area of protest and looking for diversity, but then also creating that diversity, right? But then it's also these newer portrayals of these characters. There's also this recreation of a character, or this introduction of a character that was maybe initially white, for example, right, like a Green Lantern, but even though John Stewart is a different Green Lantern, right, he is still a Green Lantern, right? So it is, I think, in order to look at these portrayals, modern times, we have to credit Dwayne McDuffie, right, because he actually, he, in a sense, laid that template.
It's interesting that you say that, because if you really think about it, just take 1 second. We're always talking about diversity. A black man did an animated series and put the black man as Green Lantern, and now that's the standard.
That's the standard.
When you think about it, that's what it's all really about. If people that are diverse, whether gay, straight, black, white, Hispanic, whatever, that's not, get to tell a story, right, guess what? The world opens up.
Seems like people might be interested in it. You know what I'm saying? Right. Because, and this is the thing I've found with our students of this particular generation, is that they're a lot more open to these various standpoints. I think a lot of, just to back it up a little bit, one of the reasons why the big two and most of the major media companies are powerful is because they've just been around longer. You know what I'm saying? They institutionalize. Institutions are very good at not changing. Much to their detriment. And so until they're forced to change. You know what I'm saying? Until the populace will say, you know what, it's time for something to shift, and that's what revolutionizes it, right? Most of the time, it's technologically based, because mediums are, media are technologically based in some fashion, right? So when you have alternative forms of discourse that's jumping out from multimedia streams, basically what's going to happen is the populace of what these people actually look like, because we're very diverse people from very different backgrounds. Everyone wants to see themselves reflected in the society that they participate in. That just makes sense, right? But for some reason, these multimedia companies are well, there's only this demographic, or there's only these people, right? This is for that. And who's making those decisions?
And sometimes you still see that in some of the companies that from different reports you've seen, even though that the actual real available data doesn't back that up at all.
No, it's actually exactly the opposite.
The problem is really on us as a consumer, because the data doesn't back it up, or data doesn't back it up, but we're not pushing it. They say, oh, well, this nationality is unrepresented. Unrepresented, but another day goes by, it's still unrepresented. Another day. There's no force of change.
Right. It's one of the reasons why we've been doing these independent cons, right? Which in comparison to a space like this, it's a sliver. But when people come to those spaces and they see the fact that these audiences do exist, and they're hungry, seriously hungry for the material, that speaks, I think, volumes around generational shifts around how we see identity, how we see who can be a hero, that kind of thing. And I think that, as you're saying, you know, these multimedia, multimodal outlets are definitely part of like that sea change.
I'll be honest. I'll just be a little more forward and also saying this. I don't have that much faith in the mainstream industry collectively. I truly believe that they push agendas for a lack of diversity, right? They are more conservative, quote, conservative in their views, and then conserving ideas of around lack of diversity.
Right. And just sometimes what's a licensable IP or something like that.
Absolutely, right. I don't think that it's hard to create more characters of color. I don't think that's a hard thing to do. You have amazing, and I'm just using characters of color just as an example, right? If you want diversity, you hire diverse people, right? And you actually have the conversations, you push the conversations, right? But comic books are really brochures, they're advertisements, you know, and what are they advertising? They advertise many times more, quote, conservative views. Well, what are those conservative views, right? There's a reason why there's a lack of diversity. It's because they choose to celebrate a lack of diversity. You know, I don't necessarily have as much faith, you know, in the mainstream comic book industry like that.
No, that's totally true. And we shouldn't have to have, we can't depend upon
Right,
the
exactly.
mainstream to have these types of conversations.
We can't.
You know what I'm saying? They
No.
basically, like, media industries are there to make money.
Yes.
And what they deem to think is going to move, you know.
Right.
So if setting cars on fire and painting them green is in, and people are making money from that, or
Every
like,
car will be green.
your car will be green and on fire.
Right,
Exactly. That's what it's
right,
about.
right.
You know? And so, or if they can cash in on a particular, like diversity right now is a buzzword. It's
Yes.
a buzzword to the corporate entities.
Right.
What's really interesting though is that, particularly the superhero genre, because there's so many limitations around the superhero genre, as far as like what is supposed to be a superhero story, they really cannot react directly to what the audience is, right?
No.
Because everything shifts around, and you have like these different paradigms that are part of the genre that denote it to be a superhero story. You know? Whereas like we're free to do whatever we want to do. If we want to do a Night Boy story, we want to do like something about, you know, a girl that can turn into a dragon-faced Pegasus monster. Whatever we want to do, we can do that.
Right.
You know, I don't know. So there's a lot of limitations in those spaces because they're so connected to their bottom line.
But what they will do is exploit the characters that they have
As much as possible.
As much as possible, and because we don't have, there's not a lot of other characters out there. We have them, but they're not out there, not being pushed. Then they will corner the market.
Yeah, definitely.
Initially.
Because they're so powerful.
They're so
because they're so
powerful.
big, and because they've been around for so long.
Yeah.
You know, Batwing, the Africa, the Batman of Africa.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on.
The entire continent,
You gonna
the
name
largest
them,
continent.
You gonna name them after?
Are we talking about the new one with Lucius Fox who made who's
Well,
the
yeah,
son
I'm
of
thinking
Lucius
about the other
Fox?
one. I was thinking about the first one too, who used to be a child soldier. I mean, it's just like whatever, man.
It's just a weird thing. Well, I think the real thing we're asking for, because we are going to probably go see Black Panther. We are going to like Power Man and support it.
Yes.
But we just want more.
Yeah.
And we want other voices. And you have to remember, and as great as those things are going to be, and I think they will be great, they're both 40 and 50 years old.
That's right.
So there should be
Zoom
one
80.
every 5 years, or every 10 years, or every 3 years. There should be more.
Right.
And hopefully that's what that will lead to. Hopefully that won't just be, well, we gave them that.
We gave them
They should
that,
be happy.
exactly, yeah.
Because, you know, the funny thing is, when I put my short out, there was it got picked up by the Elway Network, Robert Rodriguez Network, on the Elway Network, off history, Black History Month. And the Roots.com did an article saying, you know, Eric Dean trying to prove that black heroes exist. And and a lot of the comments, most comments were great, but a lot of people were like, well, Blade already did that. Blade already did that. But guess what? First of all, Blade was 19 years ago. So we only have to prove something once. That's like, so Jesse Owens was fast and he did all this stuff, so we never had anybody else run in the Olympics?
Right.
Like, no, one is not a trend.
One is not a revolution, definitely.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you're right, absolutely right. What you were saying about naturalizing black subjectivity, I think is exactly on the money. It needs to be naturalized. But there needs to be a time in the future, in the near future, hopefully, where we don't even have to do a panel like this anymore. We don't have conversations like this. It becomes naturalized.
And what's a trip about it, because most of our views by other races are set up by what they see.
Right.
The weird thing about this is if you start seeing heroes of color or black people fighting zombies or black people doing different things, then people that are non-black will start to accept it as the norm. And they won't be surprised. And guess what? eventually maybe something else will be created by somebody not black. Or when they're offered something and they're like, well, I'd love to make this, but this is the lead actor that's available and they're only African American. They'll go, oh, but I loved that type of stuff when I was a kid.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah,
and they will listen. There may be another race, but they will have a natural connection because they were exposed to it.
Right.
Almost, almost want to take this in a different direction, but just to add this, because I think Marvel hit on it. Right, I'm criticizing the mainstream, but I'm celebrating the mainstream because Marvel possesses my favorite comic book character, which is Spider-Man. Right, and Spider-Man, in the hundreds of issues of Spider-Man that anybody has ever read, you've never ever one time read a story about Spider-Man. Never. You've read a story about Peter Parker grappling every single issue with great power comes great responsibility. The last words that his uncle left him, right? Before he died. That is a human story. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anybody can be behind the Spider-Man mask. Nobody knew who he was. He could have been anybody.
Which is why
He was so humanized. And Marvel got it right with that. And he was human. So when you read about Peter Parker, okay, Peter Parker has a supermodel girlfriend. Most of us don't have that, right? Right? But he has to pay the rent. Oh no, Aunt May is going to get kicked out. So he has to go take pictures of Spider-Man as himself, beating up the lizard, right? While Dr. Octopus is attacking. Oh, but he has a chemistry test he has to pass, right? And then Mary Jane is like, hey, we got a date. You late for our date, right? There's a humanness, comically that connects all of this, right? And all of this
Having powers gives him more problems.
That's right.
Right, absolutely. There's a humanness that Marvel got right. And simply put, to say all that to say, all you have to do is do that with all your characters. You center on the humanness of that character. If they are human,
People relate to it.
people will relate to it.
Sometimes if they're not human. You know what I'm saying?
Even if they're non-human. Absolutely right.
It's like you get people who relate to Martian Manhunter.
You
Yes.
just read
Yes.
my mind. Are you? Wait a minute.
Yes.
Thing is like,
Yes.
this is a question.
Because he's a Martian Manhunter.
Yes, I
Martian
actually have
Manhunter,
that
and
cosplay.
his camera is a transformer.
Yes.
Like, look, man, I see that you got a transformer for a camera.
You know what I'm saying? Right.
Fooling me. Okay? Anyway, so.
Yeah. But that's what I think that this. I guess the really big thing is to have like stories that humanize every person in each way, so that the characters themselves are what to connect, as opposed to like any like individualized issues. As that's the most important thing. Going
Well,
forward.
yeah, because some of these issues transcend demographics, right? You look at, so I'll bring up Spider-Man again, Peter Parker again. You look at the things he was dealing with, a lot of those things were not white issues. They were black issues, they were brown issues, they were queer issues, they were human issues. I'm like, I understand Peter Parker. That's why he's a favorite hero, a character of mine, right? Because I'm like, I have great power. Oh, but I have to be responsible with it. Oh, I gotta be responsible and powerful. Oh, but I still got to pay the rent. I got to make moral decisions that won't affect my future negatively, so that I can be here for my son. Right? All of that relates back to some of the same stories that I read growing up about Spider-Man. Right? That were really stories about Peter Parker.
It's one of the reasons why we jumped off Black Kirby, right? Because we started realizing, like, oh, all these characters, all the people who are in the Black Age of Comics movement are inspired by these characters.
Shouts out to the Black Age
The thing
of
is that
Comics
when you
movement,
layer
yes.
race, the way it's constructed in the U.S. and the calamity and the craziness around like the constructions of race in the United States, it does make for a very complex superhero when you lay all of that humanness, and then you have to deal with this social construction.
Yes.
That is actually
Absolutely.
the difference, right?
Yes.
Yes. And that's and Franz Fanon wrote about this in his essay called "The Fact of Blackness," from Black Skin, White Masks. Yeah, the fact that we are saddled with having to always escape that stereotype, that prison. I just recently had the honor of writing a piece called "Skin Cells" for Bitch Planet #8. And it was basically this piece called "Skin Cells," talking about the stereotype as a prison. So we're like in the space, and we're always trying to negotiate it, in front of everybody else, to kind of slip away from it, so we can actually have the opportunity to be who we are. And then be a superhero or a professor or a director.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's
On
true.
top of
That's
that,
100%
you know what I'm
true,
saying? So that's the other thing. All right, so yeah, that's
I think
how it's working.
I think that'd be a wonderful note to end this great interview on. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you
Very much.
Appreciate it.